Hi, I'm going to talk about Hillary Clinton a little bit and her role in socialism part of your ideas that she is a socialist and she some kind of. I just seen picture where Hillary and Hitler was standing on one side. And you in somehow the American population in general thinking that it's because they're both socialist, while it doesn't. They both capitalists, and even more they not the same in any shape or form. Yet they have same kind of policies that really needed in some shape or form for American society, while Trump doing nothing in that direction. But in essence, you have to ask yourself why in the first place there is request for the socialism, I guess, not social justice, but socialism, because social justice is simple liberal agenda or propaganda. It's from liberal side of the spectrum who want destroy the family, destroy the connections with people, make people hate each other, make people obey the law as much as possible, because if you force people to go straight by the line, you will after can force them do whatever you want in essence. It's not about because socialists want to propagate. Propagate? Is this the right word? I don't know. It's not because socialists want to take over the country. It's because there is request, and Hillary, not like Trump, she is. Hillary and Bernie Sanders understand their both politics, and they understand what request there in general inside of the general population, I guess. General population are tired from wage gap and wealth gap that growing and growing and growing, and many how to say it. Forgot right word. So more and more people become poor and thrown out of on the street. On other side of the spectrum, we see 60 million people who still think or happens to be in some kind of shape or of a middle class. It means that 290 million people is either lost faith in politics, politics that country made, or straight up want changes. What changes can come after capitalism? It's socialism. What in essence is socialism? It's when government take away your property. It is. It's true. It's true. But what if in your country there is situation when 290 million people are simply have nothing to hang on to, because one way or another private enterprises fail to provide them with highest standard of living, highest standard of consumption. They basically have to live like free slaves. They have to work not 12 but 20 hours a day to at least scrape up, at least pay the bills, and in the same time you can live on, I don't know, $800 in months. $800 a month. I saw a lady who live in her own house that paid out, if I remember correctly. She have no car and she barely scrape up. barely 800 per month, if I remember correctly. On such money here in Russia, you can live pretty decent and do not be needed anything and get a car, pay your bills, etc. So there is a problem in society that 60 million people simply refuse to understand, refuse to see. And literally, like, most of the population is like, I don't know, maybe 320 million people simply don't understand what is politics, what is going on, why it's going on, what is happening, why we live in poorer and poor, why we become more poor and poor. In such conditions, those 60 million people who still trying to hang on to their middle class lifestyle, they do not want to lose their house, their car, their, I don't know, what else can you own that you can lose? What property do you have? A farm, maybe something along those lines. Yet, there is no mechanisms to hang on to this, to all of this. For small businesses and for small private enterprises, it's even harder to scrape by and survive, because big enterprise can, I don't know, close one store on one factory or one shop and reroute the financial streams, I guess, financial stream to another stores, factories, shops. They can took bigger loan than private small business can, etc., etc., etc. And in situation when general population become poorer and poorer, the level of consumption going lower and lower. It means that first who going to suffer, of course, it's a small business, it's a private enterprise, a small business, etc. And still there is in United States like huge chunk of population that still, how many people working, I forgot, 150 million last time I checked. 150 million people from 350 are working. How does everyone else scrape by? And of those 150 million, I bet that there is not 60, but I don't know, maybe 50 million people are working on shitty jobs that allow them only to survive. And in a situation when wealth gap is growing, when they see that corporations make billions, rich people make millions and billions, that some investment traders, I guess, traders that make millions, this unsatisfaction, how to call it, frustration in general public are growing. It's not because they are failing, as I am described you. You can work 12 hours, you can work 20 hours, nothing's going to change. The job that you can get is lousy, it's bad, it's not it's not allow you to survive. And in such conditions, working 20 hours a day, when you're going to live your life, when you're going to consume, when you're going to vacation, travel, or something along those lines, how are you going to keep up in such conditions? Of course, you will be lowering your level of consumption. Of course, you will be lowering your level of this recreation, I guess. Why you call holidays recreation, I don't know, but yet, if you call it that, so please. And frustration is growing between the public. It's a popular demand of socialism. It's not some kind of installed from the top or something along those lines. Yet. Here I have to point out that Hillary is in no way a socialist. Even the Bernie Sanders is in no way a socialist. Yes, he thinks that he can fix everything by simply tax the rich. It can, but to fix everything you really need to gain control over the biggest corporations in the country. And let me remind you that pretty much bailouts of 1998 and 2008 could be made in different direction. That government could, for example, bail out General Motors when there was going bankrupt, and create privately owned but state-controlled enterprise. Control the stuff in there. Now they want to privatize the healthcare system or insurance healthcare system. I don't know what it is, how it is. It means more payments, even higher payments. Even less people will be able to get medical attention. It means this give opportunities to epidemic situations, lesser healthcare level or health level in general population, more unhealthy people who don't get treatment on the streets. It's literally a threat for the population who can afford healthcare insurance. They could get in situation when there will be simply epidemic situation that CDC couldn't help, could not, how to say it? Damn, my memory sucks. So you understand the point that CDC will not handle the situation in some way. It means that it's literally a genocide in United States. Genocide that you don't need education because you couldn't afford it, because you're poor. You don't need healthcare because you can't afford it, because you're poor. You don't need money, welfare, because you're poor. And you can go and die because you're poor. But in the same time, you lost the general driver behind American economy, consumer. One dead consumer means less consumed. And if it will be like avalanche, like first it will be small chunk of snow falling, and then when it goes low over the cliff, it's like down the cliff. It will go bigger and bigger and bigger. It will simply bear, right? Not bear. How to say it? Burrow. It will burrow under itself. This avalanche will burrow under itself small businesses first. Maybe big corporation will be able to bail out, but nothing will change in essence. Every 25 years there is huge crisis that government kicked in, make fixes, take money away from the rich. That's what Bernie Sanders want to do. As I already said, that if you will take money away from the rich people and give those money to poor people so they consume stuff that rich people or corporations produce, you can give back the flow of the money in economy. Right now, the money stream is slowing. It's slower and slower and slower with time. Hillary in these conditions, yes, Hillary and Bernie want to make social some social changes. It's not it doesn't mean they both socialist. They are in no way socialist. It's all about the power of private enterprise. It's all about the privately owned enterprises will fix all, etc., etc., etc. But throughout the history of United States, every 25 years, private enterprises failed to keep up. And that's when government kick in and save the situation. What it can tell you. We all like to praise American society for capitalism without problems. When in reality, every 25 years happens situation when privately owned enterprises couldn't keep up, couldn't hold on to economy. From other side, this grows this frustration in general population that simply couldn't find a job. They couldn't. Either they go into work that highly lousy. It's like lower than lowest. Or they work for money that in conditions that they simply couldn't keep up. And frustration in this situation, of course, is growing. And it's getting worse because of welfare state, because of private medicine in general, because people lost American dream, because right now to get an education you need to get yourself into the debt slavery until the end of your life, because also of course you need a car, you need a house, you need consume stuff, you need many more other stuff to pay for, etc., etc., etc. In such conditions, this request for socialism is never comes from the rich people, the politics who in charge right now in the government. Socialist request for socialism is never comes from the top. It always comes from the bottom. When situation in the country become such ridiculous that it couldn't be fixed, this damn, I forgot this word again. Well, the tensions between the people, between the rich and the poor, could not be solved in any other shape or form other than revolution. Yes, United States owned the world. First it was a half of the world, and since the 1991 it owned the whole world. And it could provide United States citizens with level of consumption, higher standard of living, etc., etc., because it's robbed the whole world, because it's owned the whole world. But this coming to an end, and frustration in general population is growing. It's not, socialism never came from the top. The same happens in Germany in the end of 19th century. Why revolution in Russia happens? Because people was driven to the point where they lived worse than animals in the zoos. That's what driver behind revolution, in essence, and push for socialism and demand for socialism. It's always come from the bottom. And if you're trying to look in someone to blame in this situation, I can tell you who you can blame: rich people, because privately owned enterprise never think about society as a whole. All they care about their personal gains, money, and maybe sometimes, if they good enough, most of time they don't give a fuck about it, Sometimes they think about the workers that work for them. But most of the time, they simply use workers and throw them on the streets when they're useless. Simple as that. As with General Electric right now, they simply said that 20,000 people will not get their pensions. Sorry guys. What we can do in this situation? Fuck off. That's what capitalistic privately owned enterprise do. All the time. All the time. Even the mama and papa grocery shops on the corner. They have the same tendencies. But in such a situation, when the level of consumption is going down, people will be more and more going to the big stores with huge sales, with lower prices, with I don't know, well, you know, the lower prices, the lower and lower and lower prices going lower and lower and lower. Even though you consume the same amount of stuff, you consume it by the lower prices. And when the price is going up and you couldn't keep up, you either dying on the street pretty much because you have no house, or kill yourself because there is no way out. And of course, this social demand is going from the bottom, absolutely from the bottom. And it doesn't comes from the welfare state people, the useless eaters, I don't know who else, immigrants or something along those lines. No, it doesn't come from those people, because those people are fine, they doesn't care. Either it will be socialist state or capitalist state, as long as the check and coupons is coming to their post box, they doesn't care at all. It's the working part of population, the people who can work, either they in the working age or before the working age, or even on the pension and they simply couldn't keep up. But American society could not produce so many working places. Simply could not. Why the population of the United States growing right now rapidly? Because you need more and more and more and more consumers, because people could not buy in the same rate that they could previously. Previously you need like 180, 200, 250 million people, and more or less they consumed even more stuff that 350 million people right now, sorry. So if you really think that Hillary have something in common with Hitler, maybe her policies does, yet you forgetting that Hitler wasn't socialist in the first place at all. And Hillary is not socialist. And those policies are made up for capitalistic society. Capitalistic, but with different approaches, I guess. One is corporatism, let's say, Hitler's style corporatism, when corporations consume all the small businesses, all small companies, and create mega corporations that simply control the whole country, control the government, and control everything pretty much. They have, of course, these preferences, etc., etc., etc. Pretty much the same approach have Bernie Sanders and Hillary. Maybe not. Hillary maybe not. I don't know. Really. Bernie have pretty much the same approach, yet he would need to tax the rich to reroute the money to keep economy going for a little bit longer. It will doesn't solve the problem in the long run. It can solve the problem for a little bit, yet the same amount of problems, the same amount of consumption, the same amount of money that go in the pockets of the working people, they could not ramp up consumption because they simply heavily in debt. More and more households, more and more people become heavily in debt. They do not have savings, they do not have access to education, healthcare. Sorry. Their voice doesn't hurt. They see changes in society, and society is getting worse and worse and worse. And in such conditions, the frustration is growing. And this demand for socialism, because right now you can easily understand what is socialism. Yes, of course, if you already brainwashed American middle class redneck or something along those lines, you will never understand what is socialism, and will be always thinking that socialism is about killing millions of people. That's what United States government wants you to think since 1950s, because it's a threat for their lifestyle. It's a threat for their ability to use you as a free slaves, to get profits from you, to gain from you, to use you, and create such conditions. I can understand why American population have less and less, why Trump have less and less approval ratings. Right now I can understand it, because more and more people falling out from the middle class. Even though they hope, some of them still hope that Trump will save economy, will make changes or something along those lines, they see that rich people get even more rich with every day. And they see how people are around them, working people, either lost their job or couldn't keep up anymore. Even if they work at 2 jobs, and they couldn't keep up. They're losing houses, they're losing cars, they're losing everything. They couldn't have this recreation stuff. More and more people with 2 years have passed, and approval ratings of Trump is falling. Yes, they kind of doing ups and downs a little bit yet. It was like 44 or 46 percent of the people approved actions of Donald Trump, and now I see when 41% of people approving his actions, because they see they doesn't see changes. I saw a strike in General Motors. The guy, the union head of the union, chief of the union, I don't know how to call it, leader of the union, said that he doesn't believe in Trump, because in 2 years nothing has changed. I can tell you more. Things getting worse and worse. The problem is not in socialism, Bernie, Trump, Hillary, or I don't know, General Motors, or some corporation, or something along those lines. The problem is with capitalism itself, how it works, and American population could not understand, because they live inside the bubble. They could not see bubble from outside. They could not understand that there can be another relationships between the people other than egoistic relationships. They could not understand friendship. They could not understand that this system of economy is failing, because they was presented with this American dream, this propaganda of we are number one, we are better than anyone, we are richer than anyone, etc., etc., etc. Yes, there was the times in 70s, in 80s, in 90s, when United States was very rich country. It does, because it's literally printed the money, the current world reserve currency, and they sell out the debt and grow this. This is how American economy worked since 1971, since Reaganomics started. That's the best years of American economy. Yet you could not grow debt indefinitely. It will end sometimes. The bubble will burst. And you know how many money United States own combined to each other, to the banks, to another countries, to corporations, to I don't know, to each other mostly. $50 trillion, $50 trillion you own to yourself pretty much. Somebody owe to somebody. $50 trillion. $52 trillion, if to be exact, if I remember correctly. If I understand this correctly, it's not amount that is somehow on balance sheet of Federal Reserve or government that the government owe to foreign corporations, foreign governments, American corporations, and the stuff. No, it's a debt that people owe to banks, people owe to each other, people owe to corporations, corporations owe to somebody who knows to who, and something along those lines. $52 trillion. $52 trillion you own to each other. You owe to each other. Can you imagine this number? $52 trillion. Can it be repaired with the current state of economy when foreign governments finally understand that right now American money worth nothing? Absolutely. Because United States government is broke. Literally broke. They could not repay this debt ever. Because once this avalanche will start to fall, nothing can stop it. Will it burrow all economy of United States under itself? I don't know, because Trump is there, not Trump, but the people who installed the Trump is there to create a plan, to transfer to a next level of capitalism, to a next model of capitalism, and try to do it peacefully, and they could not find it. They simply couldn't find the way out for the moment. I know men who say that he find a way to transfer more or less peacefully, without war, without tragical financial crisis. Yeah, financial crisis will going to happen one way or another. But the people who stand behind Trump right now, they do not have the answer how to transfer to another model of economy, model of economical relationships between people peacefully, and do not lose the money they have right now. It's very, very hard to do, because $52 trillion Americans pretty much own to each other, banks, corporations, and simple households debt. 52 trillion. How do you think, if people owe to each other $52 trillion, the level of consumption, can it go up with any form of how to say it, with any form of taxation? Can it be fixed? No, of course not. The only thing that could be done once again is that government kicked in, tax the hell out of the rich people, broke corporations, and create state-controlled economy. Or simply tax the rich and create jobs for common people. Once again, it was in 1921. It pretty much happens in 1945. It pretty much happens in 1971. It once again happens in 1997. 4 years in last 100. 4 years, and I don't know, and I don't even know the state of economy before 1920s in United States. 4 times, sorry, not years. 4 times American government have to kick in and create jobs. Why do you need such economy? It's failing all the time, and government fixing it. Government kicking in and fixing it. That is why right now there is request for socialism. When government control everything and you just simply do your job. You're not acting like a debt slaves. You're not acting like a free slaves. You're not acting like serfs. You're not being used. You have access to education and healthcare. And it have nothing to do with taxation at all. It have nothing to do with taxation. If your employer is the government, you simply don't need to pay taxes in the first place. If you have your job that provided to you by the government, what's the point in paying the taxes? In general. And this request is going from the bottom. Not because socialism is awful, not because Hillary wants to kill everybody, not because Trump is homophobic or racist. No. Capitalism is failing once again. It will be the 5th time when capitalism is failing. They trying so hard to prevent this situation, yet they couldn't. And they are unable to prevent the next crisis. And because of current state of world economy, that crisis will be devastating for everybody in the world, pretty much. Because once again, let me remind you that US dollar is world reserve currency. It means the whole world need to reroute their money from US dollar to another currencies, and many governments in the world are already doing it, already feel the problem. They simply selling American debt. Many buybacks happening because corporations could not produce and sell enough stuff to the customers because there is not enough customers, or those customers could not buy stuff they previously could buy, etc, etc, etc. Even though we see 60 million of people who hope for changes and still hanging on to their middle class American dream, we still see, but the numbers are getting lower and lower because Trump could not save economy. He is there not for that purpose. Trump is a showman and he's doing his show. He's awesome He awesome at his job. A job of an actor who playing the potters. He awesome, let's face it. He doing exactly what he need to do. He saying exact words that people need to hear, want to hear. And people trying to believe him, trying to see that he going to change something. But from the other side, there is demand for socialism, demand for justice, demand for at least decent jobs. From the socialist, no, not so socialist, from the leftist part of the population. So you see how it's going on. Those people want Bernie because they believe that Bernie will save something. He is not. The people who want Hillary, I don't understand what they want. Why they choose her, what she presents, what policies she have, I don't understand at all. Why somebody even want to vote for Hillary? I have no idea really. And I bet that if in previous elections Bernie would win over Hillary, Bernie will be the president of the United States right now. Because social demand, not socialist demand, but social demand, it means that people want more fair business. People lost hope, people lost their beliefs in privately owned enterprises. American people so brainwashed that they think that privately owned enterprises always doing the fine job. Look at how we live in right now. And they forgetting that only government interference saving economy, saving American economy 4 years for the past century. 4 times, sorry, again years. 4 times already. American government kicked in and saved American economy from devastation, from falling apart. And all those crises was created by privately owned economy, not by government owned economy. You don't understand it. You don't want to understand it. You are very, very indoctrinated and brainwashed people. I can see it in many stuff. And not to say that you're stupid people. No. You're very talented. You can argue. Many of you can argue and say many stuff. Yet I see how indoctrinated you are. How you tend to believe in lies. What information is represented to you. How this information is presented to you, let's say. I see that it's hard to find the truth in American society because you simply have no sources to find that information. It's scary. It's really scary. What else I can say? So, in the end, I want to say that don't believe. Try to not believe the propaganda. It's not truth, it's propaganda. Pretty much all you know about other world is propaganda. It's how United States government wants you to see the truth. It's not the truth, believe me. No matter what source you have, even if it's European, even if it's Russian sources, even if it's Chinese sources, Hong Kong, Japan, Aussies, Brazil, doesn't matter. It's all under control, believe me. One way or another, I don't know how they do it, but they do. You have no access to real information and real analysis. All you have is government propaganda, American government propaganda. In Europe, in Japan, in Australia, in somewhere in Middle East, in Latin America, and of course in United States and Canada. You have only American propaganda sources. Even I, here in Russia, pretty much having the sources, I couldn't find them until recently, of course. I believe many fairy tales that our government want us to believe, yet people doesn't. Soviet education was about the critical thinking, about the how to say it, creative thinking, let's say. It's all was about think on your own, think, not just make test and you have 3 options and choose one. No. Think, give us your thoughts, etc., etc. So many people who still have Soviet education, they have critical thinking and they critically think about what is happening surrounding them. Many of Russian people right now have same mentality that people who voted Trump in United States. We are fine, therefore nothing going to happen. Therefore this system is working, etc., etc., etc. But also, as in United States, so in Europe, so in Russia, so in any other capitalistic society, frustration right now is going from the bottom. You can see mass shootings. It's also frustration. There is no hope anymore for such people, and they going to blame anyone. It doesn't matter who you will going to blame. Nazis, Trump, Hillary, Obama, I don't know, Cruz, Bush, Reagan, Hitler, Stalin. Choose anyone. Muslims. You can even blame Buddhist monks. It doesn't matter. You simply pick and choose. You choose the one group of people or one person who you're going to be hate. Many people hate Jews, many people hate Nazis, many people choose to believe in, I don't know, anything else. You simply choosing the person you hate or group of people you hate. The only one man who really gets it, who really understands what is the cause of the problem, it was Andreas Breivik. He killed not simply a children, he killed children of his government authorities, right? The children of government workers, let's say, I don't know how to say it, to authorities. He knows what the problem, the government, the rich people, this coalition of corporations, rich people and the government, because pretty much politics always represents interest of capital. It means rich people and corporations. They never represent your interest. When shit is going to hit the fan, government will try to save corporations, not average population of any country. And Andreas Breivik pointed that, nailed it, as I said. He knows the problem is not in any group of people, but those who rule our life. And it's not only politics, it's also rich and corporations. That is the problem. And you will never, ever, 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 ever will going to find person on the top who going to promote socialism in current world. Never. Because socialism will mean that they will lost everything. And first of all, they will lost power and control. That was what's the problem between socialism and capitalism. I don't believe, try to don't believe in this bullshit. The problem is not about Muslims, immigrants, I don't know, Nazis, anti-fascists, communists, socialists, or nationalists, or I don't know, patriots. No. Simple people is not the cause. Simple people is simple tools. It's just tools, and that's it. You are tools for those people who control over you, who have control of you. And no, you're not free. Don't think that you're free. It's false. It's falsehood. They created for you such a dream that you are free. And they controlling you with that. 18 years. People still believe that war in Iraq or Afghanistan, it's about to protect American borders. 18 years already. And people still proud to go there. They still believe in the same bullshit that was refuted already many times. Don't believe in such a bullshit. There is no demand for socialism from the top. There is demand for socialism from the bottom. And not the bottom, it means black, useless eaters, migrants who sitting on welfare. No. Those people doesn't care what economical system there will be or political system there will be. No. Demand going from the people who still can work or working right now. Those people are the driving force behind this demand of socialism. Working people. And they pretty much understand that capitalism is failing. They doesn't understand it, like realized it, but somewhere in the subconscious they understand that current model of economy is failing and they need something else. If it will be socialism, okay, fine, we okay with that. Just give us decent salaries, allow us to live, give us housing, something along those lines. Okay, we're going to pay for a housing, but give us at least the decent jobs that we can keep up with life, etc. So no, socialism is not about Hillary or Bernie or Ocasio-Cortez. No, guys, it's about the working people.